Hi, Sami again. Today we're going to start the series of Math 10 or Fundamentals 10 for the Ontario curriculum in Canada. So we're going to start today with coordinate geometry and basically just line segments, finding the length, midpoint, slope, and doing maybe some challenging questions in that aspect as well. So stay tuned. So in this section of Math 10, we're going to explore some basic questions. And the first one is when you're given 2 points and you want you to find the length of this line, the midpoint of this line, and the slope of this line. So the length, basically how long this line is. And then the midpoint, every line has somewhere that's exactly the middle of the line. So sometimes you could almost eyeball it. But of course, we're not going to eyeball it, but we're going to use this formula to find out what the midpoint is. And also, every straight line, it has a slope. So the formula to calculate the slope is this one here. So basically, if we look at the length of a line, the formula is x2 minus x1. You square them, plus y2 minus y1, and you square that. And after you find what's inside here, you square root it. The midpoint, all you do is just adding the two x's, like 5 and 1, and divide them by 2, and that will give you the average between the 2 points, which is the middle. And then also you do that the same thing to the y's. And the slope is basically you're going y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now, lots of students, they ask, how do I know which one is x1 and which one is y1? So you go to any point and you name it x and y, because a coordinate always have an x and a y value. Now, if you name this x1, then this has to be y1. So you could name this point x1, y1, and then you could name this point x2, y2. Yeah. Just one thing you don't want to do, you cannot say, oh, x1, and then you call the y, y2. This is 1, this is 2. So this is point 1, this is point 2. And you name them x1, y1, x2, y2. Also, you could name this point 1 and this point 2. So you could have x1, y1 here and x2, y2 there. So either or, it would work. Yeah. Now, after this, is this hard to do? Of course not. It's not going to be hard to do because it is straightforward. You just plug it into the formula. So let's find the length of the line first. Again, is this hard? Not at all. So all you need to do, just know this formula, memorize it. You know, I don't want to say write it on your hand on a test, because that's cheating, but try to memorize it. But you know what? Most teachers nowadays, they don't even care if you memorize this formula or not. They give it to you on a sheet to take with you to the test. So I don't think you even have to memorize this anymore. Back then, we had to memorize everything. There was no mercy. But now I don't think you even have to memorize this. So if you don't have to memorize it, then the length of this line that's given to us right here, it's all you need to do, just put your square root and then open the 2 set of brackets plus square on top of here, square on top of here. I'm just following this, a minus in the middle, a minus in the middle. So now just go and what's x2? X2 is 1, so you put a 1 there. And then what's x1? It's 5, so I put a 5 there. Then you need to y2 is -6. And y1 is 2, so there you go. Now 1 minus 5 is -4. When you square a -4, you get positive 16. Pay attention to this, okay? So whenever you square a negative, it becomes a positive. So 1 minus 5 is -4, and -4 squared is 16. Plus, this is -6 minus 2, that's -8. When you square a negative again, it becomes positive. 8 squared is 64. So you get 64 here. And therefore, the square root of that. And if you add this, you're going to get 0 here. And you're going to get, and you're going to get 8. So that's the square root of 80, which is, you could put that into your calculator. And in grade 10, if you haven't done mixed radicals, I'm not going to go over mixed radicals yet, because that will confuse you. So you just go into your calculator, find out what the square root of 80 is. It's very close to 81, so it's gonna be almost 9, just shy of 9. So I'm gonna just guess this 8.9 square root of 80 equals 8.94. So if we want to have two decimals, then we put a 4 there, 944, I guess, and that just rounded to 4. That's the 100th decimal, or 2 sig figs, or 2 decimals, sorry. How about the midpoint? The midpoint, again, is not tricky. The midpoint is, again, brackets, comma, this over 2, this over 2. It says x1 plus x2, so that's 5 plus 1 on top. And then it says y1 plus y2, so that's 2 plus negative 6. 2 plus negative 6 is just 2 minus 6. Okay, plus and negative just becomes minus. Now that's 6 over 2 gives you 3. And 2 minus 6 is negative 4 divided by 2 gives you negative 2. So the midpoint is at 3 and negative 2. So as I said, you could almost eyeball it. So that's your midpoint. You could just go MP for the midpoint, and that is 3 and negative 2. Now, how about the slope? Is this harder to do than what we've done so far? It's a straight formula. You just plug in the numbers where they're supposed to be. There's a minus here, minus there. So y2 minus y1. So that is negative 6 minus 2, negative 6 minus 2. And then over x2 minus x1. So 1 minus 5 on the bottom, which gives me negative 8 over negative 4. That's division. Fractions mean division. So negative 8 divided by negative 4 is 2. So the slope is 2, or 2 over 1. So that means this rises 2, runs 1, rise 2, run 1. See, if you rise 2, run 1, you get there. If you rise 2, you run 1, you get there. Rise 2, you get 1. So slope is basically rise over run. You could also find the slope by just drawing a triangle through the 2 points. So you could just bring a dotted line, or maybe a different color line like that, and then you bring a line like this. Now what you do, all you need to do is just count what the rise is. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So it's rising 8. It's running 1, 2, 3, 4. And therefore the slope, we use M for the slope, is the rise over the run. So it's 8 over 4, which gives you 2 over 1, or 2. So that's what the slope is. That's what M is. So basically straightforward when you're using the formula, basic stuff. Questions could become challenging, and we'll do some challenging questions within this chapter. So I'm just going to explore that after this for you. So if you're watching this, just make sure you copy the formulas down, because I'm not going to put them down on the screen anymore. I'm just going to go straight into answering the questions. So if you're watching this and you're following me, maybe write these down, pause, write these down, and then you could follow what I'm doing as we go further into a little bit more challenging questions. Okay. So a triangle has vertices K, 3 and 7, L, negative 5 and 1, M, 7 and negative 5. So what does vertices mean? Let's draw these points first. So we have 3 and 7. L, negative 5 and 1. And K, 7 and negative 5. Let's draw this triangle connecting these points. So what's the meaning of the word vertices? Vertices are these 3 points. We call them the vertices of the triangle. So this point, this point, and this point. Yeah. So now let's label them. This one is -5 and 1, so this is L. And 3 and 7, which is this one, and that's K. And then this one, M, which is 7 and -5. Now, the first thing they ask is find the coordinates of the midpoints of each side. The midpoint, as I mentioned in the earlier slide, that you're just averaging the x's and averaging the y's. Basically, it's x1 plus x2 over 2, comma, y1 plus y2 over 2. Yeah. So we're going to find the midpoint somewhere in here, and I think I'm eyeballing it right now, but we'll just prove that, you know, that's the case. So I think these are the 3 midpoints. Now let's find the midpoint, which this one. So if you're finding the midpoint, which is right here, it's between these 2 points right here. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go x1 plus x2. So 3 plus or plus -5. So just -5 over 2. And then comma, y1 plus y2 all over 2. So 3 minus 5 is -2. -2 divided by 2 is -1. So the answer is -1. And 7 plus 1, that's supposed to be 1. I don't know where I get the 2 from here. That's supposed to be 1. Oops. Because it's y1 plus y2 or y2 plus y1. So 7 plus 1 is 8. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So this point here is -1 and 4. Did I get it right? Yeah, -1 and 4. So that the eyeballing of this was good. Now, how about I want to find the midpoint of this? So basically, I'm going to add x1, which is 3, plus x1, or x1 plus x2. 3 plus, you know, even if you mix up the order here, as long as you're dealing with the axis and the midpoint, it doesn't matter because you're adding the 2. And then y1 plus y2, so 7 plus -5, which becomes -5 divided by 2. That 10 divided by 2 is 5. And that 7 minus 5 is 2 divided by 2 is 1. Did we get it right? That, yes, that's 5 and 1. How about here? We're going to find the midpoint right here. So it's -5 plus 7 over 2. We added the x's, we divided by 2. Now 1 plus -5, which becomes 1 minus 5 divided by 2. So -5 plus 7 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. And 1 minus 5 is -4 divided by 2 is -2. So did we get it right? Yes, it's 1 and -2. That's what the midpoint is. So that's just finding the midpoints of each line as they asked us in the first question. But the second question, they say find the length of the median from L to Km. So the median here from L to Km, so that means it's from this point here to Km. The median from L means the line that would hit the middle of Km. That's what it means. So the middle of Km is right there. So this here is going to be what we're looking for, the median from L to Km. So from L to the middle of Km, to the midpoint of Km. That's what it means. So if we say what's the median from K to LM, then you take your line from K and hit the midpoint at LM. And if you're finding the midpoint from M to LK, or finding the median from M to LK, then you go from M and hit the midpoint of LK, which is right here. But this is the one they're asking us for. Now, here, do we need to use the formula to find the length of this line? Not necessarily. We don't need to, because why? This is a horizontal line. So we could count it, you know. So here, the length, so we solved A. Now, the median here of from L to Km, the median would equal, we count it, from here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So it's 10 units long. You could try the formula to find it as well, but you don't really need to. It's this is straightforward. And that's that, you know. You could use the formula here, but you could just count it. So if it's a horizontal line or if it's a vertical line as well, you could just count it. Yeah. So how about if they ask us to find the length of the median of, let's see, from K to LM, then the median would look like this. And I'm just gonna add this to the question that wasn't asked, but I'm gonna add it just so that we could explore if it wasn't a horizontal or vertical line. So from here to here you cannot count it. And the reason is here, you know, you could see the scale right there, 1, 2, 3, but here you cannot just say you're gonna call this one and you're gonna call this two. This is a line at a slant. And when the line is slanted like this, you cannot say this is 1 because this is a little bit more than 1. 1 is up to here, but not up to there, you know, so you have here to use the formula. So the median, and I'm gonna use the same color. Yeah. So here's the median from K to LM median equals, now we have to use the formula that we used earlier, which is y2 minus y1 squared plus x2 minus x1 squared. And that will give me, so again, you have the choice to call this x1 or x2, it doesn't matter. So if you call this x1, then this has to be y1. Therefore, this is going to be x2, y2, because that's your median. And if you want to calculate the length of that, then you have to use these 2 points and just plug them in into this equation, which is y2, that's 7, minus y1, which is minus -2, that becomes +2, minus a negative always becomes plus, squared, plus x2 minus x1, so that's going to be 3 minus 1 squared. That's going to give me 9. 9 squared is 81. 3 minus 1 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So that's +4. And now we get the square root of 85. And the square root of 85 equals 9.22 if you want to round it up to 2 decimals. Yeah. Now I'm going to explore one more thing with you, which brings us back to Pythagoras. So let's say I want to find the length of K, or I want to find the length of the median from K to LM, which is this line. Also, what I could do, I could just draw dotted lines. Here, this will be a right angle triangle. Now I count the length from here to there, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's 9. And I count the length of the horizontal right here, which is 1, 2, that's 2. Pythagoras told me if you want to find the hypotenuse, which is c squared, then you go a squared, which is 9 squared, plus b squared, which is 2 squared. That gives me c squared. 9 squared is 81, 2 squared is 4. That is going to give you 85 equals c squared. And therefore, c equals the square root of 85 because you're square rooting both sides. And now the square root of 85 is, as we found here, is 9.22. To any of you who like Pythagoras, you could always use Pythagoras to find the length of a line. However, this formula here is part of the curriculum, and the teachers want to see that you could use this formula. So I think today I'm going to leave it here. In the next lesson, I'm going to continue with this chapter. We're going to get more into, the midpoint. And basically, if they give you the midpoint and they give you one of the endpoints, and then they want you to find the other endpoint, what does that mean? Let's say in the question I give you the midpoint right here and the endpoint right here. So this is called the endpoint of the line. This is the midpoint of the line. And I want you to find this endpoint. Let's say I didn't give you this value, I gave you this value and this value. How are we able to find the endpoint instead of the midpoint? So that's one of the things that we're going to go over. Also, we're going to talk about parallel lines and perpendicular lines and how their slopes are related. And also we'll do a little bit more advanced questions with this kind of concepts. I mean, if you like coordinate geometry, and if you want to look at how we graph a straight line, and how we calculate the slope of straight line, and how we compare parallel lines and perpendicular lines in slope, and how we graph them, and how we find the equation, which is going to be the next section. But if you want to go further, it's the next chapter that we're going to cover after this. So we're still going to spend a little bit of time on this chapter. But if you want to go ahead, just watch that video that pops up right at the top right there to the right. Anyways, thanks for watching. We'll continue with this series for grade 10 math for the Ontario curriculum, even though it's called the Ontario curriculum because I'm teaching this now in Ontario. However, we cover this in every province almost, just maybe at a different order in the textbook. But I hope this helps you. Wait for my next video. Is going to be in a couple of days. We'll continue helping you guys to do well in school, get that A+ in your math. Till next time, don't forget though to hit that like button, comment if you like, but most importantly, subscribe to my channel. Thanks as always for watching. Till next time, bye bye.